Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about this luscious beauty, Vice, who looks absolutely amazing. This girl is such a sex goddess. I mean, just a beautiful, beautiful looking character, wild as hell, right, as far as her aesthetics. But I do believe that Vice is having some issues, and I also believe that Mature is as well, but we'll talk about that probably in another video. So let's talk about Vice, guys. Let's talk about her kit, and why she is such a great character, but also why some things really need to be addressed in her kit. So she is a green defensive fighter, and she does have the fusion tag. She increased fusion fighter attack by 60%, which is self-buffing leadership for herself, and the critical rate by 10% is really nice. Now, her grab skill increase is really good. Critical damage, all these stats are really, really nice, guys. We don't need to get into all these. But then we get into this here, which gets pretty interesting. So, PvE exclusive when consuming soul fragment stacks with a Phantom UE skill, which I don't have. You need a character at A5, so I don't have this available. But she can summon a Twisted Soul per every soul fragment stack consumed, can summon up to 5. Now, this is really good for her, as we'll read on. Twisted Souls are treated as regular enemies. So if you're going against Twisted Soul opponents, they are destroyed when hit 10 times or 10 seconds after they are summoned. Now, I've actually tested this quite a few times, and it doesn't look like I'll go against Twisted Soul enemies, and it doesn't look like they are destroyed after getting hit 10 times. I mean, I would count 15, 20 times, and it still didn't seem like they were killing him. So unless I'm reading this wrong or understanding this wrong, this seems to be bugged right here, okay? And then tip, defeat and land attacks on Twisted Souls to activate certain effects. Yeah, we get that, right? Well, then we get apply stun. And this is another thing where I feel she's bugged. I have played with her religiously. I have not seen one stun yet. Not in any game modes that I played her in. I've never been able to stun anyone, at least not so far on this account, for 5 seconds, I believe. And then she gains a soul fragment upon landing an active 3 or finishers on a bleeding target up to 20 soul fragments. Now, so what that means is whenever you have bleed applied to an opponent and you hit that third skill, every time you hit the third skill when bleed is applied, you're going to apply 1 soul fragment for each time you hit the third skill. So literally, if you hit the third skill 20 times, you should get 20 stacks of this soul fragment. And that is actually really, really good for her, as we'll read here in a little bit. Now, this core's effect can only be activated once per target and does not activate it on Twisted Souls. So if you're going against Twisted Souls, it doesn't work. So that is something to keep in mind. Immune to fear, petrified, bleed, and poison, decreased damage received, all the little goodies for survivability, guys. And then we get into some more interesting reading with this character. I'm going to skills. I'm so used to clicking it the other way. But all we have available is the UE skill. Now, this is why the soul fragments are really important for her, because it resets active skill cooldowns upon use, increases critical damage by 7.5% up to 150% for 12 seconds per soul fragment stack upon use. Okay, so the more soul fragments that you have, the more damage that this is going to bump up to whenever you use her skills, right? You also get the 85% cooldown decrease to the next ultimate drive skill, right? So this is really, really good, but her, again, it seems like the soul fragment effect is buffed. It doesn't seem like it's working the way it should, right? Now, the first skill is a charge skill, and this is the skill that does the most damage for her. The decreased damage received is awesome. The increased active skill 1 damage that stacks with 650%. And this isn't bugged here. This seems to be working just fine. And then the deal bleed damage equal to 5% attack to the target every 1 second for 20 seconds upon landing a skill. Now, here's the thing about this skill. It is a 30-second cooldown. So whenever you're doing just a solid solo run, say against Gale Red Rugal, who is actually, kind of weak to bleed, she's only going to have bleed for so long, and then she's going to have a 30-second period, or she's going to have it for 20 seconds, and then for 30 seconds she won't have any bleed at all because of this cooldown, which is kind of annoying. But if you're playing her on a team, then you don't have to worry about this at all, because this will never take effect if you're playing on a team. However, the bleed, it says landing a skill, which dropped my drink there, but it says whenever you land a skill, it's going to apply bleed. It seems to be bugged, because there's at times where I'll go in guild raid and I'll hit the first skill and the bleed doesn't get applied. I'll go into plug-in plant and the first skill doesn't get applied. So it seems like she's got quite a few bugs with her soul fragment. Whenever you have a bleeding target and you hit the third skill and you apply you hit that third skill, you should get a soul fragment every time you do it. But it seems like it doesn't stack against the guild raid, and it seems really off sometimes in the plug-in plant as well. And then also sometimes her bleed on her first skill doesn't seem to hit the target. Like, you'll be right next to them, guys. She should be well within that hit box as far as landing a skill, and yet it still doesn't take effect. Her second skill gives her the hyper armor, the decreased defense by 80%, increased damage received by 100%. These are things we've come to expect from a lot of these characters. And then the third skill gives it physical damage equal to 10,000% attack, which is huge. It's a massive, massive buff. The girl's definitely strong, and then her default does increase target bleed damage received by 50% for 15 seconds upon landing a skill. So if you have bleed applied from the first skill, you're going to do a lot more damage after doing this default. However, again, sometimes the first skill doesn't apply the bleed, and then sometimes you'll be on that cooldown. Now, again, the cooldown doesn't really matter unless you're just doing a complete solo. You won't do as good as what you'd like to see because her bleed won't always stay up. However, it really doesn't matter. I mean, if you're using her team, if you're doing switch gameplay with her, you should be able to always get that bleed. But again, sometimes it just doesn't seem to work out too well. It's kind of annoying. You get into your core board, guys. Obviously, you should level up attack. You should level up penetration. But her first skill, max out. Second skill, max out. Third skill would be the third one. Then obviously, you would level up these right here, right? And as far as card sets, right, I have this card set. I do have the set cards that are specifically for Mature and Vice, which does give some huge buffs. We've already talked about these guys, but these are huge buffs because she's a fusion fighter. She will get this extra critical rate up to 9%. Quite a nice little buff for her. And then, of course, we're going to be using these option cards, right? And her 3PG is nice because it does give the critical damage to all Orochi Clan teammates by 25%. After using, the Dark Gaze after using it, which is nice. It's a lot of extra damage for her. And when it comes to her imprint stones, I do have these 3 imprint stones on her, just the regular stones that you get. And I also have these 2 stones. Now, this first stone, the increased active skill 1 damage by 20%, is pretty massive for her because her first skill does most damage. This is a great stone for her also. And this stone is actually, fairly decent for her. It's really meant more for Mature, but really this isn't an optimal stone for her because this is her weakest damage dealing skill. Her first skill, you're pretty much going to be spamming over and over or charging up, and that's really where a lot of her damage comes up, or gets from, or that's where a lot of her damage comes from, because it actually goes up to 650% increased damage. So let me show you guys what I'm talking about. So when I take her into Guild Raid, okay, nice little loading screens there. Whenever you take her into Guild Raid, you're going to notice that the Soul Fragment stack does not stack up at all. Which means that you're not going to do near as much damage. You're not getting near the buffs from using your UE skill. Right? And that kind of sucks. It's kind of like there's nothing in the text that says it wouldn't work in Guild Raid. So you'd assume that it does. But you guys are going to notice, I'll apply the bleed. If it does get applied, sometimes it doesn't. Right? That when we hit the third skill, it'll apply the Soul Fragment once, but it won't do it again. So I'll just hit the second skill for Hyper Armor, and look at that. No bleed, right? No damn bleed at all. Okay, so we'll try it again. There we go. Now bleed. Now right here, guys, is your Soul Fragment. This is your Soul Fragment right here, okay? All right? So every time we hit that third skill, you should be able to stack it. But if you notice, guys, we're not getting a stack at all. Now, whenever you hit the first skill, okay, you'll see that was stacking up. That was stacking. So the first skill stack is working, but the third skill, Soul Fragment, is not, which is kind of a bummer. I mean, it's really, it kind of sucks. So she won't do near as much damage because she isn't getting near the buffs. She should be getting way more buffs from having a certain amount of Soul Fragments stacked. You can stack those up to 20 times. And you should get a big damage buff, but you're not getting it because it doesn't work in Guild Raid, or at least it isn't working right now. Right? Again, it seems to be bugged. So again, it's always so weird that the first skill doesn't apply that bleed the first time. And it didn't that time either. See what I'm talking about? Very, very inconsistent, guys. Some days it seems like it works really good. Look at this. Look at this. Why? See, and there it applies. There it applies. So you can't really get a solid gauge on her damage because it's bugged. It's bugged. And that's why this isn't exactly a review of the character. I'm just kind of giving you guys the potential of what she could do. She's actually damn strong. It's just that is not being applied, right? We can't stack up soul fragments in Guild Raid, so it's hard to gauge how strong she actually is. And then the bleed sometimes doesn't apply. So if we jump into the plug-in plant, okay, and we go against a green, obviously she's a green, right? And we'll go against tier 3, okay? Now, tier 3 is not against a Twisted Soul, okay? So all those buffs should be able to be applied, right? Now here, hopefully, if this works out okay, you should see the soul fragment actually stack. But again, sometimes the bleed doesn't apply, even though you're right next to the character when you hit the first skill. Okay, so and look at that, guys. No bleed whatsoever. Like, it's just, it really, really sucks. Don't pay attention to any of the damage, guys. We don't have many overall points, and that's why our damage is pretty much crap. So let me try it again. Look at that. No bleed again. No bleed again. Right? And these are not Twisted Souls, so the bleed should be working. Like, at least it worked earlier. Now it's not working at all, right? It's not working at all. We're not getting any bleed whatsoever whenever we hit that first skill. I mean, Netmarble really needs to fix this or change the text if it needs to be changed. Look at this. No bleed again. Every time we hit that first skill, we should see bleed. Right? We should see bleed. This is so strange, right? Like, this is so strange. Nothing at all. So I can't even show you guys that it's not working because, well, she won't even apply bleed. We got to apply bleed before the soul fragment stacks can actually be applied. But in this game mode, it did work. Like, I did try the stacks and it did work, right? So if we go to tier 2, then we have this cipher here, which again isn't twisted, right? So we can try it again, see if some bleed will get applied here, okay? But yeah, it's like on and off. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work, and it really sucks. This pose, by the way, is sexy. Like, she looks awesome. It's like the aesthetics are all good, and of course, no bleed. Once again, no bleed, right? We took some dot, but they didn't get any dot from us. The 3PG really is sick. No bleed, guys. So, I mean, it's like, it's hard for me to... There we go. And now, here's the other thing. We applied that bleed, right? Well, now we're on that 30-second cooldown to where our bleed won't work again. Right? It won't work for 30 seconds after it does work. Right? And we weren't even able to stack any soul fragments. Sometimes I was able to do it in here, man. But obviously it doesn't look like we're able to do it now. We're still just kind of praying here to get some bleed applied. So we'll try it. Maybe we can get some bleed here. No bleed, okay. Here, we'll do this 3PG and then we know we're off that 30-second cooldown by the time this ends. I mean, the skills look awesome, guys. Like, she looks sick as hell. Right? It's just these bugs are, well, they're a bit annoying. And, of course, we have no bleed. Hopefully we can get bleed here. No bleed. No bleed. I mean, I don't know, guys. Like, this is the last thing I wanted to do whenever I was going to talk about Vice, right? Is complain about bugs. This is the last thing that I wanted to do. I wanted to be like, oh my gosh, she's so awesome, and you see this damage, and this is how this works, and this is how this works. But that isn't the case because she's bugged. It is obvious that that bleed is not being applied when it should be applied. And in Guild Raid, I showed you guys that them soul fragments are not stacking up. They are not stacking up. Every time you hit the third skill after applying bleed, it should be adding a soul fragment, and it's not. So it's difficult to gauge just how strong or how good Vice really is because she's got all these bugs going on. So I would ask Netmarble to fix these bugs on her and Mature, because I believe Mature's got some bugs as well, so we can actually, you know, have it, so we can actually enjoy these characters for all they have to offer. So guys, let me know what you think about Vice so far, and I do stream on Twitch at 9 p.m. to 2+7 time, link in the description below, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching. Y'all take care and have a good one. See you everybody. Take care.